epilepsy when I was 14 years old. So growing up, I had no idea what it was, what caused it, what triggered it. I was in middle school when I had my seizure, and I was in a dance class. And then, I had like a lot of experience with a dance background, with a gymnastics background. And then all of a sudden, the teacher who was responsible for the class was like, you have a disability, you cannot be in this class, you can't participate, there's nothing you can do. That was really painful to me because it's something that I had been involved in with my entire life. And then all of a sudden, it's like, you're not good enough. My parents were immigrants, so their English wasn't wonderful, and I didn't really have anybody to defend me and to go in and say, you know what, you're completely wrong. So I was left to defend myself, and I was thinking, it shouldn't be up to a kid to have to defend herself. There should be someone there who can help them, and who better than someone who's experienced it on a personal level. So it started there.
That's an impactful experience. It sounds like you had to learn how to advocate about your disability at a young age because these limitations were superimposed on you by your teacher. For you, this manifested in an unseen or hidden disability, which then others in education reacted to by what sounds like limiting your opportunities in gymnastics. Many students, particularly those in law school, have many hesitations about disclosing their disability status for reasons that are not entirely different from yours. Given your experience in middle school, how did that play a role in your disclosure process once you went into higher education?
When I was in undergrad, I didn't even want to ask for accommodations because to this day, I still don't really disclose that I have epilepsy until people get to know me. That includes my dating life, my professional life, education-wise. When I was personally at UCLA, I didn't disclose it because I was embarrassed and I was ashamed that people would judge me. And I truly regret that because accommodations make a huge difference. I wish someone had told me when I was in undergrad and even high school that it's okay for you to be different. And, it's okay to have a disability. You do have disadvantages and you need to face that. And once people get an opportunity to know you and see you're normal and you can function at the same level as everyone else, granted you need some type of accommodation, once people get to know you, then it's a little bit less scary.
What was your experience navigating hesitations or stigmas associated with disclosing your disability? Were there any noticeable differences from being a graduate student to then entering the workplace? What was that evolution like for you?
Same thing that I did in undergrad. I didn't want to disclose the fact that I have seizures and I'm not exactly the same as everyone else and I'm not considered normal. So initially I kept it to myself, and then I was speaking to a friend of mine who's my first friend in law school, and he's like, you didn't commit a crime, you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to be ashamed of. This was something that's been thrust into your life, and either you can embrace it and help other people and help yourself, defend yourself the way that you wanted to be defended back the way you were in middle school. And that's what caused me to go into the accommodations office and list the things that I need. And they were so willing to help out. They gave me time and a half on exams. They gave me someone who would be a note taker for me. I still took my own notes, but it was just someone on the side just in case, because sometimes I kind of just zone out. Professionally, I do not disclose that I have epilepsy until whoever it is that I'm working for has gotten an opportunity to know me and see that I can keep up and that I can be effective and efficient. And then whoever it is that I'm directly communicating to or I have to answer to, then I will tell them, this is what I have. Sometimes I may not be able to come in if I had a seizure. I'm kind of out of it, but most of the time I can function as well as everyone else.
What has been then your experience professionally in terms of, navigating a lot of the accommodation process? Has it been seamless for you, or has there been some learning curve in that process?
It's definitely not seamless. It's difficult to disclose. People don't know exactly what it is. They know what they've seen in movies or what they've heard, but they've never actually spoken to someone who has epilepsy.
In your experience, What was the process requesting workplace accommodations like?
My first job, I spoke directly to my boss, who's the senior attorney, because he was the one who was going to be dealing with me on a day-to-day basis, and I needed him to know this is what's going on. If there's a day that I can't come in, it's not because I'm trying to be unprofessional or that I don't respect my job. It's more that there's something that I need to deal with, and I wouldn't do it unless I actually absolutely have to miss a day. He didn't have a problem with it at all. He just asked me, what can I do to make your job a little bit easier? And that's it. Just, there might be a day where I can't come in, or I might have to leave early because I'm not feeling well. And he was very accepting of it. And my second job, I went through HR, but then HR had to explain it to my boss, and I just felt like I could convey it so much better myself rather than going through a third party.
How was that received? What was the response?
From what I can recall, I just went in and I'm like, can I have just a few minutes of your time? I want to discuss this with you. So I've had epilepsy for X amount of years. I've been successful at navigating and adjusting my schedule and my life so that I could accomplish everything that everyone else does. These were my grades in law school. This is what my experience is. These are the internships I did. I was able to excel at everything I did, and there's really no reason why I won't be able to do that here.
And speaking of that, so maybe going back to the accommodation for the bar, what was that process like for you? Or did you get accommodations for the bar?
After I had accommodations in law school, they didn't give me any problems at all. They just requested that my neurologist write a letter specifying what accommodations I needed, and they went above and beyond. They gave me a private room with a proctor so that I could take the bar in my own room in case I do have a seizure. I don't disrupt anybody else, because I was receiving time and a half. So I kind of just needed my separate space, and that was really, really helpful because I lose my train of thought sometimes when I hear people going off on the computer. I had those same exact accommodations throughout law school. Definitely ask for it because the bar is so unbelievably difficult.
If there's advice that you would have liked to have when you were starting law school and then transitioning into an attorney, what advice would that be?
I wish I knew how difficult law school would actually be, especially for someone with a disability. I wish there had been someone to hold my hand and say, you're gonna make it. If you're willing to put in the energy, the effort, make the sacrifices, it's possible. That's why I was telling you earlier, I'm so glad that you guys did this, because it's good to know that it's something that you can do, that you can take on law school, you can request the accommodations that you need. Don't be ashamed, don't be afraid. You're entitled to everything, and be confident. Know that it's possible. Believe in yourself. I know it sounds kind of corny, but it's possible. You just have to be willing to work for it.
What have you utilized as a resource to support your process and your experience?
I think the accommodations aspect of it, I learned in law school, wow, it really does make a big difference, because I didn't have it before. I didn't have it in undergrad. So I had to kind of push myself to get it in law school. And then my aha moment in law school was, wow, I really missed out. I was going through stress that was unnecessary. I was pushing myself too hard. If I asked for what I needed, then I would have received it, and undergrad would have been so much easier. And then all of that transitioned into actually getting a job.
I would want to know, is there any sort of common myth about your profession that you would want to debunk?
People assume that all I want to do is argue, and that's so far from the truth. At work, like I said, I will defend my client. I will say, this is what he's entitled to. Really, lawyers don't sit there yelling at each other or stand in front of a judge and yelling in front of the judge. That's actually a complete no-no. You have to be very respectful, and you get the best outcome when you're not trying to argue and disrespect the other party, whether that's an attorney or a judge or just a client that you're examining during trial. When I get home from work, I'm just like, okay, I'm done.
How did you manage your workload when it came into conflict with your disability needs or symptoms?
It's very hard. If you're choosing to go into law, know that, of course, the stress and lack of sleep, for me, it was inevitable. I had so many seizures, especially during law school. It got a lot better after the bar and when I started working professionally, but law school was just really stressful.
Any takeaways that you would want students to have that they gain from this conversation?
There was a lot of times where I felt sorry for myself. And then when I felt sorry for myself, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Pick yourself up. But sometimes it's okay to sit down and cry and say, I feel really overwhelmed. That's acceptable. It's okay to just take some time away, and whether that be go to the beach, go to a park, something to de-stress. All of that is acceptable. You do have some limitations and it can be so frustrating, but hopefully you've learned to live with it and accept it, and you can absolutely do it if you're willing to put in the time, the energy, make the sacrifices, because at least for someone with epilepsy, there were so many sacrifices that I had to make in order to keep up with other people. I had to study so much harder. I had to dedicate so much more time. I didn't see as much of my friends and family as I wanted. So you need to take all of that into consideration. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself, but pick yourself back up. You've gone so far. I'm sure you can go all the way.